Can a nuclear submarine save you from a global zombie outbreak? Out in deep water, the boat can generate endless electricity, manufacture fresh water, and purify its own air. Yet the steel hull cannot manufacture food. Inside this sealed cylinder, safety is an illusion governed by a finite countdown. Let us follow one crew beneath the waves until the top hatch must finally swing open. Part 1. First day. The initial feeling inside the hull is profound relief. While cities collapse under sudden panic and violence ashore, the submarine runs silently, hundreds of feet below the surface. There are no infected crowds in the ocean, no broken windows, and no emergency sirens. The thick steel skin creates an impenetrable barrier against physical contagion. The reactor generates steady power, oiling purified water into steam to spin the propeller and charge massive battery banks. Distillation units pull in raw seawater, boiling away salt and sediment to create endless drinking water. Electrolysis machines split that pure water into hydrogen and breathable oxygen, venting the waste gas outward into the deep. As far as the laws of physics are concerned, the submarine is a self-contained planet. Then, the first radio traffic arrives at the communications mast. Fragmented emergency alerts replace routine naval schedules. Shore stations report overrun hospitals, failing police lines, and falling electrical grids before abruptly cutting out. Down in the narrow mess decks, crew members stare at half-eaten meals in silence. Every person aboard knows their families are trapped in cities where emergency response has collapsed. The commanding officer orders the antenna lowered and the boat deepens its dive. Total isolation protects the crew from the chaos above, but cutting off the world also means admitting that no help is ever coming from shore.
Part 2, first week. By the 7th day, the radio spectrum has fallen completely silent. Commercial broadcasts, military command networks, and civilian distress signals disappear one by one. The crew now operates in an eerie information blackout, floating through an ocean where humanity seems to have vanished overnight. Grief becomes an invisible weight throughout every compartment. On a submarine, sorrow is dangerous because it breeds distraction. Driving a metal cylinder through crushing water pressure requires constant vigilance and razor-sharp focus. To keep the crew grounded, the officers enforce a rigid routine of watches, cleanings, and equipment checks. Keeping the machinery running is the only thing standing between the crew and the freezing sea. That machinery requires relentless physical labor. While the boat generates its own oxygen, it must also remove the carbon dioxide exhaled by over 100 people. Chemical absorption units, packed with specialized absorbent materials, continually scrub the air clean. If those scrubbers fail, dangerous gas levels will trigger severe headaches, confusion, and eventual suffocation within hours. Mechanical pumps run day and night to clear condensate and manage waste tanks. Technicians walk the length of the engine room with flashlights and infrared thermometers, listening for abnormal vibrations in every bearing. The crew realizes that staying alive is not just about hiding. It demands an exhausting, continuous mechanical fight against entropy. Part 3, first month. 30 days beneath the surface, the true bottleneck makes its presence felt. The fresh vegetables, eggs, and dairy stored during departure are long gone. The galley now relies entirely on frozen meats, canned goods, and dry staples like rice, flour, and beans. Public naval records show that submarines carry provisions for roughly 2 to 3 months of standard operation. Knowing that no supply tenders exist at sea, the leadership implements strict rationing. Meal portions shrink by 1/3 to stretch the calendar. What used to be a comforting social ritual becomes a reminder of a closing window. Crew members lose weight, and the ambient cold inside the steel hull feels sharper on an empty stomach. Meanwhile, the air inside takes on a permanent industrial smell. Cooking grease, amine chemicals from the air scrubbers, machine lubricants, and human sweat circulate endlessly through the ventilation ducts. The atmosphere remains chemically safe, but the lack of natural sunlight begins to alter sleep patterns and mood. Minor disagreements flare up over trivial matters like bump shoulders and narrow passageways or bunk curtains left open. The boat cannot make food, and every meal eaten permanently reduces the remaining time underwater. The crew realizes that staying submerged forever is a physical impossibility. Part 4, month 2.
60 days into the crisis, the boat enters dangerous operational territory. The machinery has now been running without shoreside maintenance or fresh spare parts for twice the duration of an intense operational sprint. A cooling water pump develops a leaking seal, forcing the engineering team to fabricate replacement gaskets by hand. A specialized valve on the freshwater production plant jams from mineral buildup. It takes 18 hours of meticulous labor in a cramped bilge to clear it. None of these failures are fatal on their own, but they steadily drain the ship's inventory of lubricants, replacement filters, and raw materials. Every component that breaks must now be repaired using only what was packed into the storage lockers months ago. Human biology begins to fray alongside the hardware. Minor skin infections, dental pain, and sprains cannot be easily remedied as the medicine locker dwindles. An injured or feverish watchkeeper cannot simply take time off because every specialist aboard fills an essential role on the watch bill. If an experienced propulsion technician or atmosphere monitoring specialist falls sick, their shift falls upon exhausted shipmates who are already operating on calorie deficits. Fatigue slows down reaction times. The ocean remains entirely unforgiving of human error, and the crew can feel the margin of safety narrowing with every passing watch.
Part 5, Month 3. 90 days submerged brings the vessel to the edge of survival. The pantry is nearly bare. The daily diet has collapsed into thin broths, small scoops of plain rice, and vitamin supplements. Physical weakness becomes visible in hollow cheeks and slow movements across the compartments. Chemical consumables are also reaching dangerous lows. The materials used to scrub carbon dioxide from the air and the filter elements that keep hydraulic oil clean are nearly exhausted. The crew begins running air purification systems on conservation cycles to preserve their final reserves. Carbon dioxide levels in the living spaces creep upward, leaving everyone with dull, constant headaches and brain fog. Sleep no longer restores energy. Most critically, the boat cannot sustain this balance any longer. Desperate survival ideas, like attempting to catch fish through emergency discharge tubes or growing food under artificial lights, are mathematically impossible for a crew of over 100 people. The submarine is not a permanent underwater habitat. It is a warship designed for finite missions, supported by a vast civilization that no longer answers the radio. The captain calls the senior officers to the control room to face the inevitable truth. They have to surface.
Part 6. Surface decision. The command team raises the search periscope and electronic sensors just below the waves to evaluate their landing options. The infected world is waiting, and every possible surface location carries severe risks. A major naval base offers specialized piers, heavy cranes, deep draft maintenance channels, and fortified perimeter fences. However, those military ports are situated near massive population centers that collapsed during the first chaotic weeks. The periscope reveals burning dockyards, abandoned supply ships drifted aground, and thousands of infected figures wandering along the concrete piers. Docking there risks immediate swarming before the crew could secure a single warehouse. A shallow civilian coastline or small fishing harbor seems less crowded, but it introduces extreme navigational hazards. A modern attack submarine sits deep in the water and maneuvers poorly in shallow bays. Running aground would leave the boat stranded and exposed at low tide, turning their high-tech shelter into a beached metal trap. The final option is a remote island or isolated coastal fuel terminal with deep water access. It offers natural geographic barriers and lower infected numbers, but almost no industrial resources, medical supplies, or organized agriculture to sustain the crew once they step onto land. The officers choose a secluded maritime depot, preparing small armed landing parties to clear a small perimeter on the pier. A nuclear submarine can protect you from the initial collapse of civilization better than almost any machine ever built. It can generate power, purify water, and make breathable air for months on end. But it is fundamentally an ark, not a permanent home. It serves as a bridge across the worst of the disaster, carrying you safely through the first wave until the pantry runs dry. When the day comes that the hatches must open, would you choose to land near the resources of a ruined city or take your chances on a barren shore?